Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Mary Scott, this is take 2 of today's interview in the Personal Development Hub. I am so sorry, we are 15 minutes late. There was just a whole lot of, let's call it comedy of errors. Let me turn my other screen off. Let's say a lot of time zone challenges, but we are here now, and it's a very special day because this is the first time that we've been able to stream in to this group to Costa Rica. It's very special. And my guest today has got some compelling story to tell. Her name is Gina Rizzolo Epstein, and she is a mental health advocate. She is also a documentary film writer. My goodness, she's a podcaster. She's done so many things. She has a lot of strings to her bow, and she fled New York City for Costa Rica. So a big welcome to you, Gina. Thanks so much for being patient while we figured out the time zone challenges. Oh, you're so welcome. It's lovely to see you. Look, right, it's your nighttime, my early. So How are you feeling? Are you nervous? How is this for you?
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the questions that you have. We're talking about personal development. It's something that I love. So yeah, but that's, it's my passion. So yes, I'm excited.
That's lovely. So what made you go to Costa Rica? Tell me that first.
Well, I've lived in New York since I was 20. I lived there for 33 years. We wanted to live somewhere warm, and we originally were going to move to Florida, but then we didn't like it there as much as we thought we were. We had visited there quite often. My husband had been to Costa Rica before. I had never been, and we came for a vacation, and we didn't want to leave. So we ended up leaving, coming back. We came in January. We went back in March and bought a house in Escazú, which is in the San Jose area. I don't live in that area now. I live up by the beach. I live in Guanacaste in a town called Tamarindo, which is a very big tourist town. It's a very big surfing town. So we love it here. My daughter is just turned 10. She has a great school. There's not a school in the States. There is a school in the States like it, because they have 2 in the States, I think, but it's something I couldn't afford in the States, and she's having a great childhood, and I have a great community here of friends, and yeah, it's worked out quite well for us.
That's brilliant. You've been there, a couple of years now? Is that right?
About 6.5.
Oh, 6.5. I thought your daughter was 8 when you went there.
No, she was 3.5.
Oh, my goodness. There you go. Yeah. That's interesting. And she sounds like she absolutely loves it as well.
Yes, she does. It's nature. Yeah. She loves nature. They have such a different appreciation for nature.
Yeah, absolutely. So, mental health advocate, would you like to start there? Tell us why you're such a strong mental health advocate. What got you on that path?
Okay, well, I came out of I suffer from major depression and major anxiety disorder. At the time, I was diagnosed as bipolar 2. But I had a major depression because my husband and I had a documentary film business, and we were quite successful for the first few years. And then we had the big crash in the United States, and I couldn't find a job. And I got really depressed because I had lived in New York for such a long time, and I could never find a job. So I was coming out of this year-long depression, and I wanted some support, but, I had a therapist, but I wanted some community support. So I looked online, and I found the National Alliance of Mental Illness, and NAMI, that's the acronym, and it's in the United States. It's the largest mental health grassroots organization in the United States. Every state has Every state has at least one office, but most states have more than one. And the NAMI was created by two mothers who had schizophrenic sons, and they needed support and their sons needed support. So it was started in 1979. So I got involved because I just looked online. I wanted to find some kind of support for mental, illness. And I found them, and they had a class called peer-to-peer. So the people leading it and the people in the class are all people who suffer from mental illness, and at that time, bipolar. So I went to this class, and I like to speak, and I like to share, and I got so much out of this class. I got acceptance of my mental illness. I got acceptance, and I saw a way of being able to manage my illness, which I never saw it like that before. But so two of the leaders were like, you need to apply for the In Your Own Voice program. And that program I've been in since 2014. And what I do is I do it virtually now, but when I lived in the city, I went in person to all the hospitals. I went to all the hospitals basically in New York City, in their mental wards. I share my experience. We do what happened, what works, and what's next. That's how we frame it when we do our speaking. I'm actually speaking at Montefiore Hospital in the Bronx tomorrow. I've spoken in Columbia University 4 or 5 times, Hunter College, Touro College. I've been in law offices. I've been in health fairs. I've done all kinds of talking. And it's very important to me because a lot of people kill themselves or really suffer because of the stigma of having mental illness. They're afraid to tell their family, or when I first found out I was bipolar, the only person who knew was my mom. And then when I met my husband, I told him on our second date, but I didn't really tell people because, it makes you feel bad, when people react to such a way. So, and I think a lot is getting better because there's programs like I'm in, and there's a lot of people out there trying to dispel stigma. But I think since the pandemic, people are more accepting of what depression is, what anxiety is, what PTSD is, and all of that. So that's why I do it, to get rid of the stigma so people can feel good about themselves no matter what the illness is.
Wow, that's amazing. I never knew all that. That's just brilliant. And the other reason, I guess, it is way better than it used to, and we've still got a long way to go from where I sit, but it's because of people like you. Let's not forget that. Someone like you who is courageous enough to come out and say where you're at and tell the truth of your story. And good on you. That's just brilliant. And so tomorrow when you speak at the hospital,
yes.
How do you get invitations? Is that through the organization, or is that something?
Yes, NAMI sets up everything. They set up everything. The coordinator is the person who coordinates everything, but she also finds places. It's been very interesting because I started in 2014, and in the beginning, we mostly did hospitals. And then we moved on to colleges, and now we do a lot of different outreaches, a lot of different people, companies. I mean, it's it's been really awesome.
Wow. So it's really an education role, isn't it? Educating people who don't know what's going on for people with mental. Yeah, go on.
When I do in colleges, it's usually people who are going to be social workers. We do Columbia social work program all the time, Touro College and Hunter College, their programs. And I think they get the most, they get so much out of it. Like I try to say, look, I'm your patient. I'm going to be your patient. So ask me any question, that you feel might come up for you or something, And it's wonderful how people engage with us.
Isn't that fantastic? So I've been thinking on and off over several years that sometimes, and you tell me because I don't know, is the stigma worse than the actual illness at times?
Well, I think it's a little bit better because of the pandemic, but not much. And culturally, every culture is very different. One of the things that I learned at that peer-to-peer class, I sat next to this girl named Lucy, who was a lovely young woman. She was Puerto Rican. And she shared with us how her family disowned her and her mother because in the Latino community, that's a weakness. That's your loco, so it's not. And I know from my therapist here that in Costa Rica, you don't talk about it. It's all shoved under the rug. So culturally, and African Americans the same way, they don't talk about it. So it's, you've got the culture that you're all of these different cultures, and you also have like just people's, you see movies, they see things that they think, oh. But what is very interesting, moving to this country, I have met 3 therapists who are actually 3 good friends. And I have a few friends that are bipolar here, which is interesting.
Wow. So you've been able to provide a doorway for them to speak to you freely. That's just brilliant. And well, then take me back a little bit. When did you first start to think about personal development? When did that become important in your life?
Okay, well, I'll tell you, my first introduction to it was in the 80s. My best friend from high school moved in with me, and she brought this book with her by Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. And so I bought the book. I still have it. And Louise Hay became very famous in the 80s because she helped the AIDS crisis. She helped a lot of men. So we went to 2 meditations with a bunch of men who were HIV positive, and we, did affirmations and meditated for their healing. So that's how I saw the power of it. But I come from physical sexual abuse as a child. I was molested when I was between 9 and 11. And I had witnessed when I was 5 a domestic violence from a family member, and I had to call my dad to come get me. So I had a hard teenage years, very hard teenage years. I did a lot of drugs and partied, and moving to New York was the best thing I did. But 10 months after I got to New York, I was raped by someone I knew. So I wasn't dealing with anything. And my weight went up, it went down. I was hot, really fat, I was really skinny. It was crazy. And I had a weekend where I lost my grandmother, and my parents, they split up. They chose to split up on that weekend, but they got back together 6 months later. But that was a horrible weekend of my life.
Wow.
And I came back to New York. My grandmother, I am the youngest of 9 grandchildren in an Italian-American family. So I was very close to her. So it was very hard. And when I came back, I was a mess. And I ended up, I was just a mess. I prayed to God, I don't know what to do. And then I ended up finding a therapist. And I ended up 2 years later having another kind of hit bottom. And even though I was in therapy, and I ended up, I had eating disorders, and I didn't realize, I knew I was a compulsive overeater, that I like to eat my feelings. I knew that. About a month into going to OA, I realized that I had bulimia. I was what we call laxative bulimia. This girl was explaining exactly what I did with laxatives. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like her. I'm a laxative bulimic. And so I spent from 25 to about 30 really working hard on myself. I went into a 12-step program of Overeaters Anonymous. I was very fortunate. I had a man named Arthur in the early 90s who used to take people through the steps like the original AAers. So in one night, I went through all 7 steps. I had an extremely powerful spiritual experience, which changed my life forever. And I blossomed after that, in a different way. And I have maintained 33, next week it will be 33 years of no bulimia and my compulsive eating is when I don't eat my emotions anymore. But so after I went through this whole process, and I kind of got bored of the rooms because the program is about God and about service, and people weren't talking about that in the rooms. So I ended up leaving the rooms, but my first big event that I went to is called Justin Sterling's Women's Weekend. I had a friend in OA who, in OA, and she said, you got to do this weekend. I did it. You're going to get so much out of it. But it was like $500, and I didn't have $500. She's like, I'll pay for it, and then you pay me back in little increments. I said, okay. And it was an incredible weekend. It was a weekend about being in relationship with yourself, being in relationship with other women, and being in relationship with men. And I got so much from that weekend. That was 30 years ago. In 1993, I did that. And it was an incredible weekend of bonding and being with women. It was just awesome. And what I saw after that weekend was that I needed to be in a relationship with myself, because I didn't know how I've been basically an addict since I've been 9 years old. I started taking laxatives at 9. So I didn't know how to live life on life's terms, as they say in the 12-step program. So that was my first journey. And then this friend said, I did the Landmark Forum. I want you to come to an introduction. And I was totally like, I want to do this. And she put up $100 for me to do it. I had already paid her back for the other thing, so she knew I was good for it. And so I did the Landmark Forum, and I saw life very, very differently. I saw that I was a meaning-making machine. I saw there was things that I didn't know. And I saw that I can change my mindset. I saw a lot of things in that weekend. I saw possibility. I saw that I could maybe create the life that I want. And, the Landmark Forum, you do, supposedly you do the forum, the advanced course, and the, what's that called? I forget the last one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think too. I don't know.
It's where you do the community SELP, Self-Expression Leadership Program. And I didn't do that because I didn't have the money, because it was like $750 to do the advanced course. So what I did was they had those $90 courses, which were 10 weeks long, and I did all of them. And by the time I got to doing all of them, I had a bigger job. I was making more money. I was working for a company called Tommy Hilfiger, and I lost my train of thought. And I was able to have like a personal trainer. And this man who was my personal trainer had done Landmark, and he's like, you need to do the communication courses. So when I got to the end of doing all the little like seminars that they had, I was in a group of people who had done everything in Landmark. And I asked them, should I do the advanced course or should I do the communication courses? And they all said the communication courses. So I ended up doing that, and that blew me away, because in the communication courses, I learned that how I speak creates my world, right? And I had already known that I wanted to sign up to do the team management leadership program, which is it's a 2-year program. You could do the 1 year or you could do 2 years, but I did 2 years. And that program I really got to see who I was, my power, what I can create. I ended up with a bunch of women in my team, produced in an off Broadway show. We all produced it. We all acted in it. It was an extraordinary experience because we did it at the old Playwrights Horizons in New York City on the Studio Theater upstairs, and downstairs Christopher Walken was in the play The Dead. So we thought we were like so cool.
That's brilliant.
And so that they were the big injections of personal development that I did.
My goodness.
And then I decided, I'd been in fashion since I was 20 years old. I was 38. And I really didn't want to, I just didn't want to do it anymore. I wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to do things for women. So because I had these tools from doing the team management leadership program and the communication courses and all the other things that I had, I was able to formulate a plan and get myself back in college full time. Because when I first went to school and got my associate's degree at the Fashion Institute of Technology, I put myself through school and I only got an associate's degree. So I thought if I had a bachelor's and, maybe I'll go to grad school. I didn't know at that time, but, and I wasn't a great student in high school. I wasn't a bad student at FIT. It's just that I worked full time, and then, I would do homework at night or have classes at night. So it was a lot. So I wanted to go to school full time, and my mom helped me get loans, and I went back to school. And my first semester, I totally changed my thing from writing narratives for women to wanting to become a documentary filmmaker. I went to a class called Film and Ritual, and it really changed the way I thought of it. Documentaries really can bring people together. These were documentaries of rituals done all around the world. And the thing is, what I found so interesting about this class was that every documentary, even whether it wasn't from my country or another country, I could relate to. And we're more alike than we think. That's what really brought me to doing
Absolutely. Just hold it there for a moment. If you are watching this, my goodness, Gina has hardly taken breath. And my goodness, I feel exhausted listening to this just massive story that you have, Gina. If you are watching this live, please make some comments, ask some questions, and Gina will come back in, and so will I after we have finished. But this is just impactful, just going bang, bang, bang. There's so much in this. Gina, can I take you back a little bit? And honestly, your story is compelling.
Thank you.
If we go back to just the repeated trauma in different versions over many years, and then you pick yourself up and you start to work on yourself. I mean, it's like the phoenix rising, isn't it, out of the ashes? I kept having this vision. Oh, she's, and then you'd say, oh, and then something else happened. It's like, oh my gosh. And, some of those programs, Landmark and all of those, I am familiar with them. And Landmark is still going today, and they've been around for, I can't remember when they started, but they've been around a long time. I was familiar with them in the 90s, and that's when you went and did it. And how exciting to think that you had the capacity. Well, exciting is not really the word. It's liberating. I think I've got the word, to come from that level of abuse and trauma to sincerely rise up and change so many things about yourself. One of the things that stands out there's lots that stand out, I suppose, but the one thing I want to grasp is getting to know yourself. How important has that been? And if you look, and we can go on to the documentary, I think this is all very valuable, but how important to that part of your life is getting to know yourself, if someone's watching today and they're interested in that.
Well, I think it's really important to know yourself. when I was 36, my father passed away. And it was then when I decided, like, I really need to have a life partner, because life is, it's, as you get older, it's getting harder. And I don't want to go through stuff like this alone. Even though I had great friends, I had a therapist, I had, no, I didn't have a therapist when my dad died afterwards. But I think knowing yourself and liking who you are, like I brought my daughter up this way, and she, you know, my husband teaches at her school, and he sees her playing with her friends, and 1 minute, and then like an hour or two later, she'll be sitting in the corner reading a book. She's her own person. And it means when you were so sick like I was and have no sense of, I mean, I couldn't even look in the mirror at myself. That's how bad I felt about myself. My affirmation to myself then, back in those days, I was the fat bitch. And I wasn't always that fat. Somebody posted on Facebook a picture of me in high school at a time where I thought I was huge, and I'm probably what I am now, you know, and so how are you going to enjoy other people if you don't enjoy yourself? I mean, really fully enjoy people, and then really fully enjoying yourself. I mean, that's what God wants for you. He wants you to love you the way he loves you, right? And that's what I got from program. And it took me years to unbreak a lot of conversations and things like that, you know. But you have to replace them with other positive conversations. And I just think that for me, I have such a wonderful husband. The partner that I choose is someone who loves me for me. He has put up with so much of my mental illness. He has put up so much of my just being Italian. And he does everything. He's 16 years older than me, but I'm telling you, the way he loves me, I deserve that. And I created that, you know? So that's why it's important, because you want to be with someone who gets you, or who at least is willing to put, you know, we're all human, and there's good things, there's bad things, and you want someone who's going to ride the waves with you of life, and who loves you for you. And I think that, to me, having a sense of self, I don't worry what people think about me so much, because I know who I am, you know. And if I do make an ass of myself, and I know I did, I apologize. You know, once you've been through a 12-step program and you've made amends to people, that's something that really becomes, you know, step 10 is taking a moral inventory on a daily basis. And so, yeah, I really think it is important to have a sense of self. And I think because I never had it, and when I have it, it's something that I really am grateful for and appreciative. I really, in a way, I don't think if I always was that way, I may not. And especially when I see that I can raise my daughter to be that person, you know, I'm really happy about that.
Well, yes, because you're modeling to her the power of being true to yourself. And I tell you, I'm pretty comfortable in my own skin as well. And that didn't come easily either, you know,
Right.
in terms of the growth and the challenges and the courage that it takes to get
Right.
to know myself is so much about what you're saying, because it does take courage. And
Yeah.
when you then have a child like you've had, sometimes it'd be like looking in the mirror. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how wonderful that she has you and you have your husband and you love each other. I mean, it seems so simple when we put it like that.
Right.
How fortunate to be loved truly for who you are. And I think that's a beautiful thing, never to be forgotten. And I like what you said there about, had I always had that, I wouldn't have known and appreciated it. And I love the contrast that you're talking about. You knew this world and now you know this world, and your appreciation for it is very deep, committed. And I think that the whole journey sounds like one of gratitude. And
Yeah.
I want to say a fortunate life that you actually created for yourself. It was an intentional life, wasn't it? It didn't
Yes.
you didn't suddenly become lucky, did you?
No. It was funny when I went back to school, I did really well in college when I went back, which was surprising to this person who thought she was dumb. But I wasn't at all. So I decided after my first semester, I made the dean's list, which freaked me out a little bit, I have to admit.
And what does
And
that mean? Explain that to
I
me.
means like I got straight A's. That's what it means.
Wow. So there's
So
nothing dumb about you. You just
no,
thought you were
nothing.
dumb.
Yeah, I had the story in my head. So I decided that I wanted to get back in therapy, and my goals were to keep doing well in school, to find a partner, to lose weight, because I had gained weight from being a college student already, and to have a family. And so I manifested all of that. It took me some time. I did very well. I graduated with honors. My grade point average was so good that I could take undergrad classes my last semester, and I did that. I took grad classes, and then I went to grad school in the fall of 2004. And my husband had gone back to school because he was a documentary filmmaker, but he wanted to teach at a college level, so he wanted to get his master's. And he was in his late 50s. I was 41. And he asked me out, and we met in school.
Oh, wow. How beautiful.
Yeah, so that was like number two. And 6 months later, we moved in together. I ended up completing my graduate work, and we had started our business, and we did really well for quite a while. And I did some interesting, our bread and butter was working for attorneys. So we did films for them. Then that paid they paid us a lot of money that we could do the fun little funky things that we like to do. And so that it was really fun because we were going almost every week somewhere different in the country. It was really a lot of fun. And I do miss it. And that was part of my depression. I think I missed that life. So I don't know where I was going with this now. So after doing the documentary filmmaking for that many years, and I was very fortunate because I also worked for a TV show that was on PBS for a little while called Character Studies. And it was an awesome experience because Tony Villella, who was the producer, he was a theater critic for 30 years. He took a major character from a major American play, and he would interview people who played that character and people who played opposite that character, and they would dissect the story. It was wonderful. It was really wonderful. He knew everybody. So I got to meet a lot. I met Chita Rivera, Eric Stoltz, Eli Wallach, Felicia Rashad. I went to Eli Wallach's home. I was to film something of him. I worked with a lot of celebrities. I got to be on the board, and Tony's one of his closest friends is a very famous theater actor called Austin Pendleton, and he's been in his character actor, he's been in a lot of films, and I've grown to really love him. But I got to work on this. I did rights and clearances at first, which is,
What does that mean?
Which is, can we use this picture? How much is it going to cost us if we use this photograph? How much video can we, if we want to use part of a movie, which is quite expensive. And we were nonprofit, and we were on PBS, the public.
So what did you learn? What did you learn about yourself? If we get back to the personal development theme during that time, meeting celebrities and all of that, do you remember what your biggest learnings were?
Well, I think I learned that, I think I was one thing about this internship, and I had gotten it right at the same time I was starting to see my husband. it was the second internship I had, and my first one was with Al Maisels. And Albert Maisels is one of the most famous documentary filmmakers. He started the Cinema Verte in the United States. He did Gimme Shelter, Grey Gardens, and I worked with him, but only for a short period of time, and that was a wonderful experience. But this experience really made me believe that I could make the career change.
How did it do that?
Because I I was in rights and clearances at first, and then I was learning how to edit. I was learning how to shoot. So, and I knew how to record sound, and I was learning all of that in grad school. So I got to do that for them, and my husband and I did quite a few shoots for them. Tony did a big hour-long interview with Austin, with Michael Severus, who played Tommy on Broadway, and he was just recently in Sweeney Todd, and an English actress, and I can't remember her name, Carol something, but we filmed that for him. I learned that I really loved the theater. I had started out as an actress, but got very scared because I thought I didn't like myself. So, so I ended up going to fashion school. I started at theater school, then I went to fashion school, but I started around where I grew up in New Jersey.
But you became the observer, and sorry to interrupt you, but I think this is really interesting. You became the observer of all of these people that were well known.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like for you? Like, you were learning all these skills, but at the same time, you're watching all this happening and how they were and who they were. What stands out about that?
I think I edited all 89 interviews. So there's a lot of different people that stand out for me on that level. And then the actual interviews that I was in on, as being a PA. I think the most impressive person I met.
No, but I'm talking about you. I'm not talking about impressive people. I'm talking about what was your learning from observing these people? What did you take from it? Because I think there's lots of impressive people around, but I'm more interested in your story and your personal development journey about what did you learn about being in that position, I suppose.
I learned about being present. I learned that that my parents had taught me to respect, and how everybody deserves respect, and that's how I treated celebrities, and everybody. That's how I did, but I didn't treat them I was polite, courteous, myself, respectful as I would be to anybody, and that I liked about myself. I just really, one of the things I know about myself, but really highlighted in that time, is one of the reasons I liked theater, and one of the reasons why I liked it. I was a fabric buyer manager in the fashion industry, and it's all working together towards one thing. And I think I really like to work like that. And
a team.
And I really, and I was there the whole time I had my business as well, because I became part of the board. I became Tony, the producer, is, he's one of my dearest friends, and his husband, they are very, we're very close to them. So it just, I got a family, I got more friends, and because Tony and I are both Italian, so he's like my Italian cousin. We call each other cousins. And it just really showed me that I could do it. This can happen. Yeah,
the possibilities. You just hold on one sec. You've got so much to say. It's just amazing. I love it, and I think there's some of this Italian energy coming out that I just adore. I just adore. If you are watching this is Mary Scott. We are on the Personal Development Hub. My goodness, my guest today is Gina Rizzolo Epstein, mental health advocate, documentary filmmaker, and has a wealth of knowledge about healing herself. And please, if you're here, stay with us. Now, Gina, come back to you. If you were to look back now to say what was the one thing in your life that was pivotal, because you've got a few, but what was the one thing that really changed everything? It was like a line in the sand for you. What would it be?
I would say for me, doing the 12-step program, doing it the way I did it, I was done through the same way the original AAers did it. So we did the first 7 steps in one night.
And that was with one support person? Just set the scene for me.
Sure. So this man, Arthur, was an alcoholic. He was a recovered alcoholic. He and his brother had gone to business in LA and met this guy, Hank. Hank's story is in not the newest big book, but Hank was like 20 years old and kept going to AA meetings. They're like, you're too young. But then they finally realized he had a problem. And so Hank would take people through the steps the way the original AAers did. So his brother flew him out there and they both did it. And they asked Hank if they could take people in New York City through the steps. And he trained them and they came to New York. And by the time I got there, his brother had left. So it was just Arthur. And how it's set up is you call Arthur and he won't call you back, and you call him again and he may not call you back, or he may call you back. But he wants to know that you want it. So he gives you,
he's testing you.
Yes, exactly. And so you go, I went to this, it was at a theater called the Lamb Church Theater in New York City. It's on like
a how many times did you have to call him, Gina?
Twice. I called him twice.
And what happened the third time?
He called me back. He called me back after the second time.
And then what happened from there?
Okay, well, he said you have to be at the Lamb Church Theater. I think it's on 46 between 6th and 7th, at 9 o'clock. It was he used to do it on the last Friday of every month, and it was like August 30th for me in 1991.
9 p.m.
9 p.m. Now, 46th Street is like Times Square area. In 1991, it was getting better, but it was still pretty scary. So it's scary now in a different way. But so once you're in there, you're in there.
And how old were you then?
1991, I was 28, 27.
So here's a young woman going to meet this person at 9 p.m. Pretty scary. Then what happens?
Well, there was 12 of us going through the steps. So we sat on one side of the room, and then there was Arthur, and there was people who had gone through the steps as well.
So they're the support. They're the support people. So you had like a cheer squad there.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And a lot of these people became good friends for a while, for quite a long time. But and then Arthur started speaking about the first step, and then we started talking about the second step. But in the beginning of the night, we each had got a piece of legal pad paper, and one side you put your liabilities, and the other side you put your assets. And he said, even on your asset side, if you don't have it, just put it. So so you're doing that all night as he's talking, and we're exchanging, blah, blah, blah. And then you do the third step, which is something I can't really tell you how it's done, Mary.
But how did you feel? You've got to the third, I don't need all the detail, but how do you feel then at that moment? You're on to the third step, you're with this group of people, you're only young. How was it? Look at me, I'm red with the heat. I didn't put my aircon on. Yes, so tell me, you're at the third step. How do you feel?
The third step is very powerful because the way they do it is extraordinary, and you release, and I felt the love of the universe, of God, whatever you want to call it, just around me. And when I stood up, I was different, and I've been that. Life is not that it hasn't been easy, or I've had some really hard times. I'm not saying that.
But that was the one thing that stood out, and here you are.
I'm never alone, but I'm never alone anymore because I have my faith and I have God. I am Christian, so I do believe in Jesus. So I that's my higher power, so
Yeah.
that was the most pivotal.
And what time did you finish the 12 steps? What did you do, 7 on one night?
Yeah, so I got done about 5 o'clock in the morning.
And how did you feel then, apart from probably tired? Or
I just felt like air. I felt like I was a cloud and I was just walking around. I felt so good. I remember going home and calling my parents and telling them that I just had the most spiritual experience. And I know that God loves me. And my parents were so because I had been struggling for so long and they just didn't know how to help me, and they were just, they loved when I was in program. So yeah.
Oh, that is absolutely brilliant. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for, but my goodness, I thank you so much for your honesty, your openness, and sharing what you've shared today. I mean, well, it's enlightening for me. I know you just a smidge, but it's a privilege to know you. It's absolutely amazing that you've chosen to share so much of your life here. And I think I can see another, if we can get our time zones in order, I can see, and if we decide to continue with this next year, depending on what people think in the group, really, we will definitely get you back. And thanks so much for your time and your energy.
Thank you. Also, just if anybody has questions after listening to this or whatever, you can always message me on Facebook.
No, let's put it all in the group. That's why the group's there.
Oh, yeah. Put it in the group and then I'll respond.
Yeah, I think there will be some questions. And if you're listening to this as a replay and you have questions for Gina, please put #replay so she gets the context of it. And Gina, there is so much more to ask. And I want what you've told us so far to sink in, because you've jammed all of this into this 45 minutes. And, I think people might just need to take a breath. And and 45 minutes usually is as long as I go. But do go back into the group, and I think you'll find some amazing comments then. And like I said, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, especially at the late hour. You have a beautiful rest of your evening, and I know you and I'll speak soon. Bye-bye.
Okay.
This week's episode has come to an end, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.